Welcome to BrotoGP. This is episode number 104. I hope I got that right. We're actually talking about Moto America this time, and we have a special guest on the show. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see his helmet, and you probably know who it is. But yeah, Moto America, our special guest, plenty to talk about. Let's do it.
What's up, guys? As always, Kevin from BrotoGP here, joined by Rob. What, Rob, are you below me right now, or are you above me?
I'm above you.
Always above me. That's because I'm Rob's bottom, bitch. And joined with us, the great reveal. You don't know if you can't already tell by his sexy, sultry eyes. He will remove his helmet momentarily.
There it is.
There it is. Oh, headphones.
Oh.
Whatever. We tried some on-stage stunts there.
We tried some stunts on camera. You will see Moto America racer Kyle Wyman. Dun, 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 dun. So there we go. We can talk some shit.
Live from my trailer.
Right, where the magic happens.
Yeah, so where are you at right now, Kyle?
I'm at New Jersey. I'm already at the track. It's a little bit early, but I'm here coaching with YCRS before the weekend. So.
And you're totally allowed to ride on track like this close to the date? I guess you're not riding your actual superbike.
Yeah, I'm riding an FC1, and I guess if you make the argument that you need to make money coaching to make it to the race, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
Privateer life to the fullest right there.
Right. He's his own fucking boss. He doesn't listen to no one.
Yeah. So let's actually let's jump right into New Jersey then. So New Jersey is actually kind of like a highlight for you, it seems, every single year. I know last year you got, in 2017, you had a podium in Superbike, and you actually had the fastest lap of the second race and got second position behind Tony Elias. So yeah, tell us about last year's race and kind of how you're looking forward to that for this season.
Last year was good. I was really struggling for like the couple rounds before Jersey last year, and for the couple rounds before Jersey the year before that, and the year before that. It's always like I come into Jersey and I'm like, we need to get a result, you know? And it's usually been a couple rounds since we've felt like we've been moving forward. But last year I just came in and right off the bat, I don't know, you know, sometimes you get lucky with the setup or whatever, but we felt so good out of the gate. We were 7/10 quicker than anybody in the first practice. And it's the first time I've ever done that. So, you know, at that point, the possibility of a podium felt pretty real. And we just worked to try to make the bike good for the end of the race. And on Sunday, it was a good day. So finally got there.
You were
so before
go ahead.
Yeah, Rob, this is my job, Rob. You fucking press buttons. So before the broadcast, and maybe I'll delve into something too deep right off the bat, but you had mentioned that you may have had ahead of Jersey a slight chip on your shoulder regarding potentially having a ride or not having a ride. And do you think that that kind of mental attitude kind of played into that coming out the gates like a bat out of hell? I mean, 7/10 faster than anyone in the first practice is a lot more than just being lucky on setup. That to me sounds like something to prove, or that's a statement much more so than just, hey, like the guy fucking had the right compression damping off the bat.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like last year, like Cam Bovier got hurt at Pittsburgh, and I was in the running for that replacement ride for the last two rounds, and obviously Josh Herring got it, but I found that out, you know, the week before New Jersey, and I guess maybe you could say it was a chip on my shoulder, but, you know, for me, it was more about just certainty, stability. Like, okay, I know what I have to deal with now, instead of just waiting for a phone call or an email or whatever. So, you know, I guess it was a combination of things, but, you know, it doesn't hurt that I've been around here a lot at slow pace, just kind of understand what I need to go fast at this track. But yeah, I just it came together, and I knew it was in me. It's just, you know, when you're just struggling and in a rut, it's really tough to claw your way out of it. I get really high strung a lot of times. I was talking to Wayne Rainey about that before the race last year. He's like, yo, you need to go have a beer or something. Like, you're just like way too high strung. You need to just chill out and relax. And he's totally right.
Right. Like, I've made that.
Is it the rounds before that are kind of getting you into that mood before New Jersey? Or, I mean, is it and you said too that you were in a rut. Is that same rut happening this season? Like, what is it that you think that's doing it to you?
It's really circumstantial. Like, there's so many variables in this sport. It's so hard to just say, oh, that's the reason why he's doing well, or that's the reason why he's doing not well, or had a bad weekend or a bad year. There's so many different things that go into a good result. And for me, when I'm in control of so many more than just what I do on the motorcycle, that can get like overwhelming at times. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, for me, Sonoma is always tough because I don't have a lot of time there. We don't go well there. This year we had mechanicals, a mechanical caused crash, a blown motor on Friday. We made like 12 laps. So when you're racing Superbike, you can't afford to have a Friday like that. You're just not going to do well. So then you react and you knee jerk to try to like shortcut the development of the bike to make it better in less time, and it never works. You go backwards, and then the rider spun out and the crew's spun out, and 10th place it is. You know what I mean?
And just to give a little background on what Kyle was saying there about him having so much more to do, you're team owner, you're not crew chief, but you also manage, or I'm sure you do a lot of the social media, and you're actively engaged in working on the motorcycle and doing other things like the entire weekend. Like, I mean, is there anything else that I forgot? What else do you do every weekend?
Well, I write all the press releases, and I'll tell you what, it's a lot more fun to write about getting on the podium than finishing 8th again.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a guy here that has enough irons in the fire that he has to wear his Thursday shirt. Little self plug.
Kyle specifically bought.
Kyle has joked with us that he wears a white BrotoGP shirt so that he can't be allowed to work on the bike or turn wrenches or get involved because he's wearing just the crispiness of the white. Like he literally can't. So he's obviously, he's the kind of guy that is running the show top to bottom. So, having to actually force himself jokingly to not turn wrenches, get involved, tell things, even just move stuff. Like you were saying, just moving boxes and shit, literally.
It all matters. Yeah.
At VIR earlier this year, I had a back injury that I didn't really know how bad it was until Thursday at the track when I was lifting shit. And I was down for the count. I had to call a chiropractor in Danville, Virginia. I went over there, got decompressed and all this stuff. And it was my weekend. Like, I don't know, a lot of different stuff happens, and I'm not, I just kind of, I put my head down and I just go through the stuff. I just do it. Like, I used to like lean on, I'm a team owner and rider, so like I should only be able to do this well, like I thought 6th was my peak with what I have to deal with. But at the beginning of last year, I decided, what if I could still do, really well despite the situation, act like it's not my situation, like pretend in my head that like when I go out to prepare, I'm a factory rider. And if I decide that in my head that somehow my situation is going to hold me back from preparing the same way I would if I was only a rider, then I'm not going to prepare to the same level. So like I try to just act like I don't have all this stuff going on, act like, I don't have credit card debt. I mean, like sitting on the grid and being able to compartmentalize everything and just put all that aside when you're on the grid has been something that I've had to work at for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, literally, like, I make jokes about fake it till you make it, but remove self-imposed limits, I suppose. And just, when you're in rider mode, you're Kyle, professional racer, and being able to compartmentalize. Was that something that took you a while to be able to do? Or was it when you had perhaps good results that you realized, oh, that's the mindset I was in? I guess what I'm saying is, it something you realized you actively had to pursue, or did it just kind of on a freewheeling weekend you start getting good results and you realize, oh, I got the results because the mindset I was in was stress free, or compartmentalized, focused solely on it? How did you come to kind of the realization of removing those, I should say, mental limits, or whatever, however you want to call it?
No, I mean, it was definitely a conscious decision to just decide that I'm not going to be, it's the whole, like, it's the old saying, like, you're not going to be a product of your circumstances. And I'm not saying my circumstances are bad. Like, I've found out how to race motorcycles for a living. Right.
Rad.
I have a bitchin' lifestyle. Right. But, all the time. I mean, even when I sat down with Andrea Dovizioso,
okay,
right, I sat down with Dovey, and we signed posters at Cycle Gear in Austin, and he like saw my poster and he saw like the logo, like Kyle Wyman Racing, and he's like, you like run your own team? I was like, yeah. He's like, no, like you like actually manage it? And he's just like, I don't know how you can possibly like do that and still race. And
yeah, that's a good point.
Dude, like, I feel like, okay, like, how good is he, right?
Right, like you're literally looking to
pretty good.
He's decent, he's solid,
Yeah, he's like he's up there, he's in the mix.
He's a solid 6.
He's out, baby.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a great point, that if you're literally sitting there, that's like the dichotomy is perfect. What are you doing? You're sitting there at a booth before a race, autographing pictures of yourself that people are lining up to get, and then you get to go race motorcycles professionally. And then right next to you was another guy doing the same thing in a different facet, going, damn, you're fucking crazy, for doing both those things. And it's like right there at that table is like the proof in the pudding. Like, wow, everything is gravy, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like, used to feel good. Like, oh, look, I'm doing something that, people don't do, like I'm racing Superbike as a rider team owner, and I'm doing all this and all that, and like I get pats on the back and TV mentions because of it, but like that doesn't matter to me. Like all that matters to me is on track results.
Because exactly what you said, like it used to matter, but you've been there, done that. Like you're not a guy who's resting on his laurels. You're thinking, okay, look, I accomplished that goal, which was get on the grid, get solid, respectable results, establish this team, and race for my for a living, like you said. But now, like, that's in the past, and like, to move on kind of to New Jersey this year, is that you prove that when things are going well, you can fight for victory. You can be the fastest guy on the track. You can literally podium, within that environment. Now, obviously, kind of like once you've done that, that's the new goal isn't, like you said, getting 6th anymore. It's how do I get on that podium, and how do I fucking win one of these bad boys? You know what I mean?
Dude, the thing is like, it's hard to get there. It's harder to stay there.
Right.
Just like anything, it was hard to get that first podium. It felt amazing to get that podium. I mean, like if I turned around and looked behind me, I was too busy bawling my eyes out in my helmet, but if I turned around and looked behind me, both the factory Yamahas were not even in sight. That doesn't happen. If that happened 10 years ago, my life would be a little bit different the following year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not how it was. So that, it got me notoriety, and it maybe got me sponsors. I did my best to create value out of that and try to create better situations for the next year. But the reality is I'm still driving my own rig to the races and doing this deal. So, this year's been different. Like it's honestly, and you guys have probably heard about it, when they changed the tire. at
Right.
Road America.
Well, we heard lots about this in our
Yeah.
on kind of behind off the cuff or off the record, I should say, that this change to the new Dunlop is not popular, except for maybe with two people.
Yeah, let's move back to PittRace
Yeah,
then with the last round. I actually saw on social media that you might have used the word breakthrough, that you kind of found something in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we actually we changed suspension companies.
Oh, really?
Sweet.
That's massive. I don't
What'd
want
you
to
go
get too
from?
heavy into it. Like, so K-Tech has been my people for a long time, and they've done so much for me. I podiumed on their forks last year and their shock, right?
Right.
I mean, their stuff is incredible. But the support that Olin's has, right? What we can pull from to push ourselves forward. I was the furthest anybody has taken K-Tech in our series. And in BSB, it's different tires, different tracks. It's not comparable. So I don't have the infrastructure to develop the stuff to a new level. Back when Jordan Suzuki was around, they ran K-Tech. They had big budget. They had infrastructure to push that stuff to the next level. But, at some point, I feel like we just kind of plateaued.
And
for
so
me
did they.
to move forward. Right. Yeah. And it's not the product. Like, I believe the hardware and the product is as good as anything out there. But, when we have literally access to the settings bank for every other R1 on the grid because everyone else is on Olin's, I mean, it had to be, it was a difficult decision, but kind of a no-brainer at the same time. We had to go do something different. So we started Friday at Pittsburgh with brand new suspension I've never ridden on. We didn't have time to test it. So I was immediately more comfortable than I'd been all year. And we got the bike pretty damn close towards the end of the weekend. And got a good start, ran up there with the boys for a couple laps, but just didn't have the longevity yet.
But that's a good example of kind of like if you're a guy who's wearing a lot of hats running the team, that's just removing one of them. Whether the material, the hardware is capable is not really in question. But what's in question is that one more thing you want to do also be a development rider or remove one variable from your system and you can hone it in and tighter and more efficient.
Well, and let's just talk about the variable of having to have these conversations with your sponsors and having to go through this decision-making process as a rider.
Right, like Tony Elias tells someone that he wants to change, and then someone else's job is to go tell them that, not like you face to face. He goes home
and goes surfing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I have to make the hard phone calls and do all this stuff, and it's shitty sometimes, but
just like when Rob forgets to mention our sponsor Riders Law at the beginning of the show, and for the last 15 minutes has been telling me how do we get in there. He actually has to go explain that. I don't, but Rob has to go face to face with signs like, oh yeah, we totally didn't mention you at all.
Hey Rob, I'm starting a consulting business about how to deal with sponsors, so I'm going to monetize this for myself.
Right.
Please do. I will be your first customer actually for your consulting business. I will pay for that for certain. No, I was actually gonna bring Riders Law in there. Yeah, right. Okay, we'll take a slight segue then. I was gonna bring Riders Law into this because actually they're now sponsoring your teammate, Bryce Prince. Bryce had an amazing weekend in Pittsburgh last weekend. He got on the box both times. Yeah. So that was pretty awesome to see. I mean, so Riders Law, of course, we talk about all the time how they support our sport, how they're doing their part for street motorcyclists, trying to, get them whole again financially. If they get injured, they're doing their part for the little guys in pro racing like me, and for now faster riders too. They can put it on the box. So please, if you need any legal support and you're in the state of California, give Riders Law a call. That's Riders Law with a Z. Check them out at riderslaw.com. And they're helping out our podcast. And actually, funny thing is, I've heard from quite a few people that they just like skip past like the first 10 minutes of the episode. So putting this in the middle probably isn't a terrible thing.
Hey, I
Right.
gotta give those guys props because Bryce literally called me 2 weeks before Pittsburgh and said, "Hey, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the last 3 rounds
Ooh.
unless something dramatic happens." And Ryder's Law stepped up for him, I think, in a big way. So it's got him, the security he needs, and obviously now the results. I mean, I can't imagine if he missed Pittsburgh and missed being able to get on that podium twice. I mean, in race one, straight up beating JD Beach, last lap pass. I mean,
no,
legit.
they didn't crash. Like he just
legit.
got on the
Right.
box. That was a great race. If you haven't watched the Super Sport races from Pittsburgh, they're on YouTube. And I mean, all the Moto America races are on YouTube.
Wait,
now
that's
too,
free?
So go check them out. Yeah, they're free on YouTube.
You can watch Moto America races for free. You'd think people don't know that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You think I haven't been sharing it and pointing it out constantly? So
It's
we
just
actually had a
no one
bunch of
wants to
English
wait.
fans. We had a bunch of English fans and Australian fans being like, I can't watch it. And they finally released it to be able to watch worldwide on YouTube. I don't know why it wasn't before. So there's a lot of people who are mentioning and catching it up. I've seen a lot of comments about it regarding the ability to watch these races now. So if you haven't watched them, go over, I think it's BN Sports USA's page, but you can watch it anywhere. So it's not zone specific anymore.
Yeah, and even I wonder if the Moto America Stock 1000 and the Twins Cup races are zone specific. They're probably not. They shouldn't be. But either way, let's Kyle, let's get back to you. I think the one question I had there when you brought up talking about changing suspension components is like, did you have to call like Cycle Gear and tell them like, hey, like I don't know, did you ask for like, can I get 10 grand to buy new suspension, or what sort of conversations are you talking about here?
No, I mean, conversations of, people who support me, and I'm going to tell them, hey, I'm not going to use your product anymore.
Oh, okay.
Brutal.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
All right. Kev has another girlfriend breakup analogy going.
Trust me, I got hundreds of those bad boys.
Yeah.
Looking at Kyle right now, I think he probably has lots of those stories too.
Oh yeah, totally.
Wait, so am I the only one in the Moto America paddock still on K-Tech then? Uh-oh. That's not good. I'm going to have to pick your brain if you got free information.
Don't go there. Okay. Like, this stuff is good. Like, the stuff put me on the podium. The stuff put me, up front in the beginning part of Pittsburgh. I mean, or beginning part of like a lot of races this year. Finished fourth in the rain at Atlanta. I mean, that kind of stuff. Like, the stuff will get you there. It's almost more of a rider questioning what he has scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I am wondering if there's some setup, out in the abyss that we just haven't found yet, because we have no one to compare with on the entire grid. I can't help but wonder, okay, am I really becoming a shit rider, or is something holding me back?
I mean,
So,
you're not the only rider that's ever made those kind of decisions where it wasn't a decision. It was, what can you control? I mean, Valentino Rossi famously got rid of a crew chief that he won 7 MotoGP titles with because he knew he couldn't change who he was, and he wasn't changing his team or his bike. You're only left with a certain number of variables you can change. And if you feel like you've plateaued or you're stuck, or even like you said, if you start to question yourself, it's time to at least give something to try. No one was ever talking bad about Jeremy Burgess. He's probably the greatest crew chief there ever was, but it was the one thing he could change that to at least see. Yeah.
I mean, you think my conversation was hard. Imagine, Valentino having to make that conversation,
right. Or having paparazzi break the news early because someone in his thing did it. And so the news was released on Twitter and he didn't get to tell him face to face.
Yeah. I mean, that is what nightmares are made of. That is Casey Stoner's nightmare.
Yes.
like he couldn't even stand to sit in a press conference, Well,
and for the suspension stuff from the technical side, like we've talked about before with other classes, that not having a teammate and not having someone to work on setup with you is a crutch, right? It can hold back both riders. Like you're already solo in Superbike with your own team, but being on Olin suspension and being able to look at dyno charts and know what everyone else is running, that's like having half a teammate. It's taking some of that work.
I mean, it got to the point where, all these different people from all these other teams on Yamahas are coming over to our tent, like trying to figure out what the hell's going on over at KWR. Like, how can we help these guys? How can we figure this? Yeah, it is cool, but when everybody reaches a dead end, and kind of reaches the common denominator, we got to make a change, and it's tough to do mid-season. Maybe maybe I stick it out, but then maybe I go into an off season questioning myself, and I'm not willing to do that.
Yeah, and that's interesting to bring up another kind of MotoGP relevant. Danny Pedrosa famously did that in 2008 when he switched mid-season to Bridgestone after having, serious problem with the Michelins. Now, they were going to be moving on to, at the time, it wasn't sure, but they knew that they'd be moving on to a spec tire eventually. But the idea was that I got to I'm going to change something, and, I don't want to head in with uncertainty. Anytime, I'm not a professional rider, certainly. I compete in my own sport, but you guys obviously are faster than I ever could possibly be. But if you start to question yourself, those are creeping thoughts that are probably aren't healthy, for someone whose job is to bend a corner at 100 miles an hour. You want uber confidence.
Yeah, and whenever you do make that change, it's kind of a Hail Mary, because we've seen it in a lot of cases where maybe at not the highest levels, but where somebody makes a change like that because they're kind of betting on something being the deciding factor, and it doesn't make a difference,
Yeah, unless you're Jorge Lorenzo and you go for a new gas tank. That's all you want.
That's what Kyle, that's actually what you need, bro. You just need a new tank cover.
No, actually, I spent a lot of time on my tank shape. But,
really?
Yeah, I
really
do. But Jorge did not go faster because of his tank shape. He went faster.
It was his dad bod.
Because his future was secure.
Oh, really? You think it had nothing to do with it? You think the timing of the Repsol contract perfectly matched up with the tank cover?
I think it did.
It's actually close, because there were stories that came out that he had that Repsol contract in hand for quite a while before announcing it. Yeah. So your speculation isn't that far off.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes to kind of what you said earlier about once you have a level of certainty that you're willing to, you're moving something aside, your future's secure, right?
Well, let's talk about some more uncertainty before we move on to some other random stuff. Let's talk about the uncertainty of that Dunlop rear tire. I want to hear about it more. I mean, I'm the tire guy. I love talking about it.
Rob loves huge black rubber.
So you've got a new rear tire.
When did they release it? Like
yeah, exactly. Yes,
it was like the second round, right? That Dunlop released the new tire for you.
It was Road America.
Road America, fourth round.
Yeah. So a tire is 14 millimeters taller in the middle, right?
Really? 14?
Yeah, 14 top to bottom, 7 millimeters from the axle to the ground.
Yeah.
So let's say you got a motorcycle and you put that bigger tire on. What happens to the swing arm?
Flatter.
Swing arm gets flatter. It's a taller tire, so your initial reaction is lower the rear. To make up for the normal, person who's looking at.
Look at Rob just telling Kyle right to his face. That's not what you do.
Hey, all right, listen.
He knows.
Rob, I know that anti-squat is in line from the bottom of the rear contact patch through the intersection of the top line of the chain in the middle of the swing arm where they intersect, through that all the way to where that intersects with the bottom up from the front contact patch, and 100%
no one else knows
the center of gravity. All right?
Yeah.
It's probably the only rider on the Superbike grid that knows all of that bullshit.
And that's part of the original problem that we were just discussing. Yeah, too many hats. right?
Yeah. Well, John Hopkins said, the more you know, the slower you go.
I think I told you that he said that.
Yeah, I think you did.
I know, and the look you gave me was like, I'm gonna fucking kill this guy.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, you're too smart. Okay. That's the problem.
Yeah, right. So, no, so now you try to compensate for the tire, and for us, we got super spun out because the factory team was like, we didn't change anything. We didn't change anything for the tire. We just liked it right away, and it's like, okay, but that's a massive change. How did you not change something? But right, if they were already, well, they're not. I mean, they weren't really lying because the geometry of the R1 they were riding was in such a different realm of what we were finding success with that the tire change didn't affect them as much. They ran a much taller bike, so their bike was already kind of scaled to a larger rear tire. When you threw a big tire on ours, you might as well have, put the front tire on the back and the back tire on the front. It screwed everything up so bad, and it just took us a lot longer to figure out the direction that was going to help us, even with help from the factory team.
Yeah, we talked to a number of people who seem to have similar problems. Didn't get obviously the technical info there, but it's interesting to me, and I'm not trying to throw them under the bus or throw shade or whatever, but why a mid-season tire change of such drastic, contrast? You're talking about 14 millimeters. Obviously, is quite a shape difference. To just, if it wasn't broke, what were they fixing, and why the tire change?
I think just following the trend of superbikes around the world and Pirelli going to that same shape and construction of type of tire. So actually the tire has made differences in lap times. People are going faster. So, when you see that, it doesn't matter what all the teams think of it. People are going faster, so we must implement that. Moto America wants to have faster lap times. They want to show up at Laguna and be closer to the World Superbike guys. So they don't care that, it was rush it in so somebody can go faster on it at Laguna, or hold out another year and let all the teams be, more acquainted with it. But, I think that if they wanted to do it properly, they would introduce the new tire and leave the old tire as an option for the teams that just haven't quite, I can't afford to go, do 3 more tests in the middle of the season because we can't figure out this tire. I went and did 2 track days, one of which ended terribly because I rear-ended a guy who stopped on a racetrack. I'll never test it at track day again. Ouch. And trying to catch up with, this like R&D curve where literally all of our notes from past years with the R1 became completely irrelevant at every track because of how big the tire change was.
Mm-hmm. So how was there a single round like at Road America? Could you run both or either rear tire, or was it just the new one right away?
We found out at the end of the weekend at Road America that if you had any old size tires in your possession already, you could run them.
Seriously?
But they weren't selling them. So if you had surplus of them, you could have run them for that one round, in case. A lot of times you end up with, if you have a spare new tire on a rim for a race, left over from the weekend, it carries over to the next.
Yeah, but no one carries a surplus of an entire weekend's worth of rear tires.
No, exactly.
Yeah. You brought up World Superbike and how they introduce development constructions and compounds all the time, but they have options. They have so many options for each of the racers, and they can still use the old ones. I think Vandermark was the first one that won on the new construction rear tire that they talked about so much, but there were plenty of people in that race running the old construction as well. So the ideal solution that you brought up is what Pirelli and World Superbike had implemented. So it's Kev doesn't want to talk shit, but there was
it eliminates the, well, I would have, could have, should have, you know what I mean? for all the teams that ran better on the smaller tire, you know, we're all looking at, and I am at the last 5 rounds, like, well, if I had a 255, we'd have been definitely good at Utah and some of these rounds where I know we have good setups, and I know we have gone good in the past, you know. So it's like you give everybody options, and then if they don't do well because of, you know, whatever reason, at least, well, you could have chose the other tire, so you didn't. That's the price you pay, you know. So give people the option to fail if on their own, instead of forcing them into a situation where they're just kind of stuck.
Yeah, I mean, and you would have had more opportunities for direct comparison. It might have sped up your development having both choices there the whole time. Like, yeah, it seems like it would have been better for everyone to have both options. But so, I mean, do you have this tire as kind of a dark cloud hanging over the whole season? Like, I mean, are you thinking about like how well you could have done, you know, say from the podium New Jersey last year and building on those results for the whole rest of the season? Or, I mean, as a racer,
I don't really look at it like that. I mean, what I've learned about geometry and development because of this tire will benefit me for a lot of years. You know, I mean, there's just things that I've gathered now about learning what that feels like and what different things feel like. You know, the interesting thing about that tire is, yeah, it's taller in the middle, but it's the same circumference tire.
Sorry, so now we lost you there. At the edge, it's the same circumference?
At the edge, it's the same circumference as the 55.
Gotcha.
So now, you know, you've got taller in the middle, same size as the old tire on the edges, and the Westby team, they talk a lot about, you know, the biggest problem for them was adjusting their electronics and their engine braking for the new tire, because now as they tip into the corner, essentially your final drive ratio is changing at a different rate than it would on the old tire. So it changed what RPMs the bike was in at different parts of the corners. Now you've got to basically start over from scratch. And we
motorcycle racing is complex as fuck.
Dude. And I'm running laps thinking about this shit. You know what I mean? Like,
right, yeah.
You know, I do my best to leave that, you know, to the side, but you'd think you were interviewing a crew chief right now, not a rider, talking about this stuff, you know?
I mean, a lot of people tell me that some people always give me the advice, like, well, just stop thinking about it. Just go ride the bike. I'm like, Valentino Rossi doesn't ride a session and come in and not have something to say to his crew chief, right? You always have to compartmentalize. You have to have some feedback. Otherwise you're not going to go forward. Right. And the whole goal, go faster every session. Kev, what were you going to say?
Me personally, I have a bit of advice, Kyle, you know, coming from as such a vaunted racer yourself, that you need to brake later and gas earlier.
Kev did race motorcycles. Did you know that Kevin raced motorcycles at one point in his life?
That was horrible, but I did, yes. I raced a supermoto. I
pull up.
Well, yeah, we don't have any pictures to pull up. It's interesting, though, you know, we talk. What's that?
I said that's bullshit. The way you said that makes me think that there are pictures that exist.
Of me racing? Oh, there are, but I was terrible. I mean, to quote to quote Casey Stoner, the great Casey Stoner, my ambitions far outweighed my talent. Unlike the two guys joining me right now.
White too?
Oh God, they're definitely were taken like on like
they're pre-Facebook, right?
Yeah, they're pre-Facebook.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I think those were on MySpace. I think, but in my defense, if they were on MySpace, those pictures of me racing were lots of chicks' top 8 friends. You know what I mean? Really dated myself because both you guys are like, "What the fuck's he talking about?"
I feel like MySpace might still exist.
Oh, I logged in last week. It's so random.
Holy shit!
Seriously,
on the space?
No.
Oh, shit.
Seriously, Hannah and I were like, because she swears we used to talk on MySpace. I have no memory of it whatsoever.
Right, you're like, I talked to lots of chicks on MySpace.
No, I mean, I have no memory. Maybe she was a late bloomer. Who knows?
Right.
We tried to log in to find our conversations, and they weren't there. It was all gone and migrated and everything. But like the pictures in the top 8 is still there.
What?
So
No
if you
way.
can, I
Who
swear,
was your top 8?
Oh man, just a bunch of dirt trackers.
Okay.
A bunch of dirt track kids. Because I think I was like 15 the last time I was actually like on there.
On the
So.
yeah. What was your song? Did you pimp your page?
Oh yeah, I totally did. I think I had like some Incubus song or
Nah,
something.
of course.
I was the same age in the 90s.
Yep. Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah, right, because it was like 2005. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It was probably a pimped up black, white, and red, like the Kyle Wyman racing hat. That was mine.
I wonder if we can find you on the Wayback Machine. That's what I need to spend some solid time looking up both your guys' MySpace on the Wayback Machine.
Just do not look mine up. Do not. Absolutely do not. I will be living in my truck in less than a week.
Oh, I know what you're. Okay, all right. It's gonna happen, but I'll show almost no one.
The wheels are spinning.
Yeah. So let's actually do. No, I'm taking it. I'm taking this one, Kyle. We do want to hear about you when you were 15 quite a bit more, because I feel like there's this big gap in American road racing, especially of the fans don't know where you came from. They really don't know who the fuck you are. But before then,
no, they know who you are, but what they don't have is context.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yep.
But before we get there, random questions. Beer, liquor, or wine?
All of the above.
Yeah, what's in that blue cup right now?
Well, I've been kind of splitting between kombucha and vodka soda.
That's a good mix. What is the coolest thing you did last weekend?
I had a martini the night before my podium.
Gin or vodka?
Vodka.
What?
Dirty or... Why am I'm the odd one out that likes gin martinis? That's weird.
You want my drink order? You're going to take me on a date, Rob?
Yeah, pretty much. No, what's the coolest thing you did last weekend?
That's
not motorcycle related.
So like yesterday?
Yeah, it is Monday. That's
technically
true.
Yes.
Or the weekend before.
I played golf on Saturday.
That's not cool.
No.
Was that just to help you relax? Maybe get some of that anxiety that Rainey said you need to chill out about?
It's literally to get away, to like shut off my brain for a bit and get mad at something else.
Right.
So is your handicap like a 14 then? Yeah.
14? I'll raise you 14.
I'm writing an app for a company that is all about golf right now, and my handicap is far worse. Don't worry about it.
All right.
So it's interesting though that we brought up, the gap, you should say, in American road racing that kind of happened. There was, you even made that mention that if you'd gotten that podium in New Jersey, 10 years ago, 15 or 12 years ago, your life would be completely different. And that's true. Remember when there was there was so many factories, there was jokingly a class for each factory. We had Formula Extreme, Super Stock, Super Sport, Super Bike. But back then, obviously, when you were coming up, you told me a story when I was at Sonoma about how you used to grow up in New York, and you would actually go across the border to Canada to race dirt track XR 750s because you were too young to actually be able to race them. So I definitely kind of like want to recap that a little bit, because if we're talking about context, that's gangster. Like, fuck your rules. I'm going to Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was born and bred to be a flat tracker. I mean, from day one. So my family is a Harley Davidson dealership.
Nice.
In New York. So literally, the house I grew up in is on the same property as the dealership. It's right behind the dealership. So, school bus picked me up and dropped me off at the Harley dealership. And the dealership was started by my grandfather in 1962. Franchise fee was $500.
Word.
Cleaned out his chicken coop, had room for 2 bikes and 2 boxes of leather jackets. So
that was the start of the Harley dealership.
That was the start. and that dude just wanted to be a Harley dealer, and that's pretty cool. So long like family history in motorcycles, and my grandfather brought my mom to flat track races in the 70s. When she was young, she had favorite riders. One of them was Freddie Nix, who was somebody she remembered who was like really good with kids, and his number was number three. But he died like in a house fire or something like when he was really young, and my mom, always kind of memorialized him because that was like her childhood hero. So when we were growing up, us three brothers racing flat track, she wanted us all to be number three. So we were all number three until I turned pro and had to be a double digit number and took 33. So that's the history of the number. And
when was that? When did you go pro for flat track?
16, as soon as I could.
So that would,
but,
I don't know how old you are. I don't know if you want to tell everyone.
This is like the most American story ever. Your fucking grandpa
in Canada
started a Harley Davidson dealership out of a barn with 2 bikes and a box full of jackets, raised a family, sent a bunch of grandkids out racing galore on fly. I mean, God damn, this is like, I'm feeling very patriotic right now. I mean, this is America. So you turned pro at 16 and you're flat tracking for how long before you decide to switch to road racing?
Well, so just to give you reference with your story, about the XR 750s and, racing twins, being from Western New York, we would race a lot in Ohio and in Canada because they had really good racetracks like horse tracks, cushion half miles and cushion miles. So I was kind of like a cushion specialist when I was growing up, and we had to do that to get me time on a big bike before I would actually go pro, because it seemed like when guys were going pro on the twins, they were young. They didn't have a lot of time on the bikes. They didn't have a lot of experience. So they wanted to try to figure out a way to get me experience. And, obviously being in a Harley Davidson dealership, being able to have access to, Harley Davidson XR 750 motors and stuff like that was huge. So like I had the dream scenario as a kid growing up in flat track. And at the end of 2007, there was the tryouts for the Red Bull Rookies Cup that came up for 2008. And I was already too old to try out. It was my first expert year as a flat tracker, 2007. I missed a lot of the season because I broke my neck and my back in my backyard training. Yes.
Just your neck and your back?
3 vertebrae in my neck and 2 in my back when I was 17. And it like put me out for that whole season. My brother, Travis, was just young enough to try out for Rookies Cup, and he made the team. So Travis, my brother, actually raced Red Bull Rookies all of 2008. And when he made that switch, my mom and my dad decided, hey, let's try this road racing thing and see how it goes. And if we want to get Travis good results in Red Bull Rookies, then we got to take all our kids to WERA events and try to get them going. And we bought a 600. I never raced little bikes road racing. I just went to a 600. And half season of novice, was bumped to expert the next year. And then right away, DMG took over AMA Pro, what seemed like the best thing ever at the time, and came out with the
about 3 months.
Came out with the
seemed like it was dope.
Yeah, like this is awesome. NASCAR's taking over. We're all gonna be
$50,000 purses, rolling grids, rolling starts. It's gonna be great.
Oh yeah. So they came out with the super sport class, the young kids class.
Right, East and West, I believe, right?
So, so I got to race. They didn't make it East and West until 2010, actually, but 2009 I raced AMA Pro, and my first race was at Daytona. I finished 4th, and it was on, So, we bought some kind of like R6s that had some Graves help and did some, just went out and learned as much as we could. At the end of that year at Daytona, at the shootout race, lost my brakes, shattered my leg, have had up to this date 12 surgeries on this leg.
Oh,
but at that time, put me out. And I mean, I'll just keep going. I can go on forever. You know, the kind of the transition, like, how did I get here, right? How did I get where I'm running my own team, right? So,
right, because there's this point where you're a 16-year-old fresh pro flat track racer. Yeah. Now I look at you, you don't look a day over 21. But a team owner, superbike podium, contender. So
the beginning of 2010, I was going to do select Daytona sport bike races. I was 20 years old. So do your math. I'm 28.
Right. I don't believe it.
Right before the season started, my parents said, all right, we're getting a divorce, but we're still going to go racing as a big, happy family. And that lasted about half a weekend.
I was going to say like maybe 5 hours.
Yeah. That lasted about half a weekend. I went through, probably not as much as my brothers went through. My brothers were 18 and 16. I was 20. At least I was kind of like, starting to like figure my shit out, but I'm still 20. Like 20 is like the worst age.
Yeah, the requirement of stability at 20 is much less than at 16. 14, 15, yes. 16-year-old development, you really want that stability. 20, you're out doing whatever.
Yeah. So you think you got it kind of figured out, but like even at the end of 2010, still riding under the family tent, and I don't want to go into the details of all that, but
sure.
I finished 6th at the last race at Barber in Daytona sport bike in what was literally my, maybe 8th pro race. And, being right up there with guys. I mean, that was the year where Josh Herron and Danny Eslick fought for the championship, with Martin Cardenas. And I mean, Daytona sport bike was stacked, right? And
it was supposed to be the marquee class. Initially,
it really was.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, and I was like, man, that I'm not going to be able to carry this momentum. At the end of that year, I was like, you know what? I need to go figure out how to race on my own or not race at all. And there was some really, really tough times in that where I was like, how am I gonna, I literally have nothing. Like, how am I going to figure this out? So I was like,
what do you mean on your own? Like just without your parents being there, or without the family?
Without the family support. My parents divorced. My mom is the dealer owner. My dad is kind of on his own. My brothers stayed racing with my dad or with my mom, and me and my dad were going to try to figure out how to do something. And, we had nothing to start with. So this Harley Davidson XR 1200 class came about. And I
Rolling Thunder.
I sent emails to Richie Morris every week about trying to race that class. Like, please do something. He says, I'll rent you this. It's like $3,000 a week. And I'm like, I can't, like, there's no way I can do it. Like, there's no way I can do it. And like a month and a half before the season started, he finally said, okay, I'll provide a bike and I'll transport it, but you got to crew it. You got to put tires on it. You got to get to the races. You got to do everything. So I did that season, and the first race I won Daytona.
Boom.
It was my first win ever, right out of the gate. It was me, Phil Moore, Steve Rapp, Joe Kopp in that top 4. And I was like, I did it. I've arrived. This is going to be like golden ticket. I just beat Richie's like hired gun, Chris Fillmore. Like, we're good. Right. And I had the the most miserable the most miserable season after that, because I never like even got close until the last race at New Jersey. I finally got on the podium again. Okay.
At Jersey.
So
Jack Miller. It's like the Jack Miller
at
effect.
Jersey, right? So this is the end of 2011. If you know anything about, AMA and where things were, Richie Morris had pretty much burnt every bridge left in the paddock, left the paddock. And again, I was on my own. So I had this sponsor, Kuryakin, who does like custom Harley parts. And I was working for them at all the rallies around the country. I was working at like Sturgis rallies, Bike Week, Galveston, Pensacola. I was like traveling, making $100 a day, like installing parts on people's Harleys to pay for my racing. And they had this XR1200 in their shop that they were making parts for, and they didn't need it anymore. So I got them to let me take the bike, go to Daytona, now fully on my own. Me and my dad built this XR, took my 2007 Dodge Ram down to Daytona with an XR in the back, won Daytona again 2 years in a row.
Privateer life.
And I got sponsors. Sponsors came on. I got a Harley dealer, a different Harley dealer to help me out,
right,
called Spikes Harley Davidson, right? And I started this rental program where I was renting bikes per weekend throughout the season, and it was funding my whole race team.
Oh, that was you. I remember reading something about that in when the Harley class was going around.
Yeah. So that's how I was funding my team. And by the end of 2012, I had built to a certain level where Michael Barnes didn't have a ride. So I was able to bring him on my team at the end of the year. I got hurt with a 20-point lead at New Jersey, huge high side in the final corner, chasing down a guy who wasn't in the points when I was in second. Would have locked up the championship, threw it away instead.
Oh my God.
So Michael Barnes, my teammate, goes on to win the championship. I become a 22-year-old AMA Pro Championship winner, team owner.
Yeah.
And
right, 22.
And I'm like, but I'm still thinking about Barber 2010, where I finished 6th in the 600s. I'm like, I don't need to be screwing around with these Harleys. I need to go to 600s. And the sponsor I had, what's that?
Was that thought in your mind like the whole time you were in that class, or is it just something that came about from you fighting for the championship?
I was just fixated on 600s because I just wanted to be like, I was like, I'm 22, I'm so old, like I need to be moving up. Like Josh Herron is my same age, and like he's already gonna move to Superbike next year, like I'm so behind the curve, and I'm just like, like all of these kids that are, I'm just fixated on what everyone else is doing,
Well, I mean, and you weren't racing against people like your own age. You were racing against people that already had experience and kind of been around the block, right? And yeah, I know how you feel.
yeah. So the sponsor I had was like, okay, we're going to take you 600 racing next year. We're going to put up a huge 6-figure budget, and you're going to ride for John Ulrich on their new Honda team, and we're going to pay for the whole thing, and it's going to be awesome. Okay.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Obviously, this didn't work out, and I'll tell you why. So DMG catches wind that there's this huge oil sponsor guy who's helping a team, and they fly to Texas to meet with this guy and pitch him on buying the series instead of sponsoring Kyle Wyman, and scare this guy away for good.
Oh, shit.
Seriously?
Straight corporate espionage, dog.
Dude.
So that was your sponsor gone for the season.
For 13. So I said, all right, so I've got all these Harleys. I'm going to take one of them. I'm going to go race Daytona. I'm going to try to win again. It'll be awesome. I'll get more sponsors. Everything will be great. I finish second. Still keeps me up at night. And I'm like, all right, so I'm dating Elena Myers at this point. Okay. So this is another, like a whole other.
All right.
Like we'll get
Hannah,
all
turn this part off, Hannah. Turn it down.
No, it's fine. So Elena gets a Triumph ride. I'm like, 600s. I need to be on a 600, whatever it takes, whatever I got to do. I'm good friends with Jason DeSalvo. He gets me a couple triumphs. I'm like, I'm going to build a 600 team. It's going to be great. I got like $15,000 and it's fine. I'll just figure it out. Terrible mistake. I'm living out of some guy's airplane hangar in Indiana, working on these bikes in a paint booth that he wasn't using in his hangar. And I shatter my wrist halfway through the year. I missed the whole season. Missed a whole bunch of people off. It's just a complete disaster. So starting over from scratch, like there's a TV clip of me finishing, like fighting for dead last in Daytona Sport Bike at Road America from that year. And it's like what my nightmares are made of. Right. So
it feels like there's this a trend, not to say a trend, but it feels like every single time you take the step and get the break and the proof is in the pudding and show it, there's this event out of your control, unrelated to the actual act of racing itself, that seems to like pull you back from the precipice. A parent's divorce, or an injury, or a neck injury, or a sponsor apparently, a sponsor scared off. Right? It feels like every time you describe, I'm ready for and then he went pro and went to MotoGP. You know what I mean? Like I don't mean to say it in a bad way because you're my boy, but you know what I mean. But it feels like there's like I hear the story, and every time I hear you tell us about this. The final perfect break, I fucking proved it. I can do this. I'm as good as anyone on this grid. I'm better than anyone on this grid when my stars align, just like anyone needs to win a race in motorcycle racing. Everything has to align right. And then suddenly there's like this discord and it's taken from you. That's got to be mentally a toll.
Yeah, it's just like it was always like, really, again? You know what I mean? Like, is this really at that point? I mean, 2013 was like rock bottom. I mean, it's total rock bottom for me. But, just kind of, broke up with my girlfriend and started over from scratch and went into 2014, like, started this, I did this whole like rebrand KWR, this logo. I started this logo 2014. I'm like, this is it. I'm going to start over. I'm going to go for the XR 1200 championship because I know that for some reason, I know that I'm being pushed towards that.
Okay.
Right. Rob, do you edit these?
Yeah, a little bit.
Cut this? Because I have to piss so fucking bad, I can't even hold it anymore.
No, do not cut this. I'm on live Instagram. I'm live in it right now.
Go.
God damn.
Bro, I've left in the middle of pissing all the time.
So Kev, let's I'm not gonna cut this. Let's brainstorm what random questions we're going to ask him.
I mean, definitely we're gonna ask him whether he prefers mint berry crunch or is he 1/3 berry, 1/3 crunch?
What was it? It was mint berry crunch with like a topping of it's a South Park joke, everyone.
Right.
Mint berry crunch. No, that was it. So does he prefer mint berry or crunch?
Yes, I will ask him that exactly.
All right. What else we got? I mean this is nuts. I didn't realize there was this entire thing with the XR100 class. I didn't know Kyle was so heavily involved in that.
Right.
Like I knew that he had some time on 600s with DMG, but that was kind of like it. It's like these are why we're asking these questions, because these are the kind of things that you don't always get to hear about. And obviously it's all those experiences have had such a huge impact on how he approaches racing and what he's doing now. I mean, like there's no way he could be running his own team successfully in Superbike at the moment if he hadn't have, I don't know, should I say screwed up that many times before or had things go so poorly?
Right. Exactly. Right now we're discussing whether you were channeling the trajectory of the P and how it was hitting the bowl and whether that was your center of gravity. Like, is your rear squat correct for the angle of urine stream required?
See, this is assuming that I stand up to pee.
Oh,
Well,
no.
He just said rear squat, so I thought that was
I
implying
said
that you
true,
sit
right?
down.
I
There
said
you go.
rear squat, exactly. The real question we want to know is
Well, no, hold on. My balls are empty now.
boom. Yes. Fully empty. Exactly, the urine storage device.
You're welcome, listeners.
Oh, Kev,
Yes.
Kev, ask him the question we came up
I
with.
was gonna ask him if he preferred mint berry or crunch.
I prefer a mint berry crunch, actually.
Boom. You have to harness the power of all three.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, no, I'm not cutting that in any way. We were talking about you while you were gone.
Great.
So to
Yes.
continue your story, where were you? You were in 2014, and you had essentially started
He 2014, he is literally knows that the world is pushing him towards the XR 1200. The
championship.
ghosts from the past, literal ancestors combined. It's all set up. It is literally like the montage of the Kyle Wyman movie is like right now. It's like close up on his face, and he's thinking hard into the night, and the montage is happening, and yeah, exactly. And songs from Rocky IV are playing, and it shows like his grandpa revving an engine, and then his mom is like stressing over, bills early on, making sure the Harley Davidson thing keeps alive while she tries to raise these 3 kids, and it's all coming down to a head right now. The movie of your life is going to be epic.
There will be a book.
Yes.
No.
Kev is a good screenwriter, or we think
yeah.
he's a good screenwriter.
Dude, I mean, I just want him to narrate the trailer.
In PBS voice, Kev, or in what was the other voice that you did?
Movie trailer. We need a movie trailer,
You
Kev.
need an epic movie trailer voice.
Yeah.
Right. Right. In the spring of 2014.
Well, that's what it was. It's the Beneath the Rubber voice.
Right.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Sorry, back to what you were saying there, Kyle.
A phoenix will rise.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're being pushed towards this class. You feel
All right, so I'm restarting the rental program. It's going to fund my deal. I'm going to race XRs. I'm going to do the whole championship, and I'm going to rent so many bikes that I can also run a 600 program.
For
Because
yourself or
I
for
can't-
someone else?
For me, because I can't
Oh.
let go of that obsession, right? I go to Daytona. I win the XR 1200 race.
like a boss.
So I've
Again.
I won 11, 12, finished second and 13. Now I won 14. Awesome. Next day is the Daytona 200, my first ever Daytona 200. I finished 6th. I'm like, sweet. Like, we're back on track. It's all good. I go home. I meet this girl named Hannah. Right?
Might have heard of her.
And
Yeah, I think we know who she is.
I ask her out on a date, and the morning of our date, I get a call from DMG, and the call is, you've been disqualified from the XR 1200 race 6 weeks ago.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a long story. You can read the press release. They confiscated the head. They tested it. They flow tested
Title
it.
of Rob's
They said,
sex
"You're all
tape."
good." Yeah. They tested the head. Don't go there. And then they got the stuff back. Just a huge drama. They already paid me the money and everything, and they just revoked it anyway. Whatever. But it was so funny that the theme of that day was, A, I'm disqualified from the race I won, and B, I'm going to get stood up on my first date, because that actually happened too.
What?
Oh.
She stood you up?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now we're
damn.
getting right the real meat of the story.
So, okay, let me ask you guys a question.
I'm ready.
If I say, hey, Kev, you want to go grab a beer on Wednesday? Today's Monday, right?
If you ask me,
If I ask, hey, as bros, okay?
100%.
Let's go grab a beer on Wednesday.
I'm good.
You know, happy hour.
Yes.
I'll meet you at 4 o'clock on Wednesday at whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. If I don't talk to you on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, you're going to show up Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
We've made plans.
We've made plans.
Especially because you put a time on it. You put 4 p.m. on it.
There's specificity to this plan.
Yeah.
I got a time and a place, right? There's very specific.
And an activity.
Yes.
We bring in beers.
If you will.
Right.
It's a trifecta.
And I don't follow up with said person. If I don't say, hey, are you still coming for beers at 4 o'clock, Kev? You know,
right.
Like
that's not hot. That's insecure. No one likes an insecure dude. You assume she's going to be there.
Exactly. I assume she's going to be there. She doesn't. She doesn't show up because I didn't follow up. Okay. So I'm sitting at this restaurant and I'm seeing her like posting videos of her at a car wash, and you know, it's like a movie, right? I'm literally the only guy. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon at a French place, and I'm like by myself. The waitresses are doing a wine tasting with some, you know, person who brought wines for them to learn what the different kinds of wines are that they offer. So I start drinking with them, and you know, of course I get one of the waitresses' numbers, blah blah blah, but like they convinced me to go.
You threw that in there. Of course,
I had to throw it in there, right? Okay. She knows. Okay? She knows. She stood me up. All right. So, still, she told me where she worked. I have never met this girl in person. I met her through
MySpace.
Oh no way!
Initially MySpace. She said she friend requested me. Said she remembered me from whatever. I messaged her like, "Hey, do I know you?" It's like so cliche, right? But never met this girl in my life. And I showed up at her work and told her she owed me another date because she stood me up. The rest is history. So,
right? So wait, she showed up to the second one, right?
Yes, she showed up. She had to. But okay, so this is the middle of 2014. Let's go back to motorcycle racing because we know how that story ended up. The beginning is a little bit different than now. A lot more stable now. She shows up for things. So,
she's going to listen to this episode, of course.
Oh, 100%. So 14 goes along, have a pretty good year on the 600s. Nothing stellar, you know, like 7th, 8th place finishes, you know, stuff like that. I win the last race at New Jersey on the Harley again. So this like recurring theme of New Jersey, you know, so this is the last ever XR 1200 race because now these new folks called Crave Group and Moto America are going to take over the series. No more XR 1200 class. Now we're going to real bigger and better things. It's going to be awesome. 2015 is going to be great. So I decided to get the whole family back together for 2015.
Oh shit, the band's back together.
Oh damn.
What could go wrong, right?
I feel like you're going to tell us.
I feel like the follow-up is everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not as bad as it seems, but financially I buried myself in 15, but it was, again, just another like learning experience. Now I'm running multi-riders in 600 class, you know, bigger budgets, bigger everything, you know, a lot going on. I pick up a sponsor called Excelsa Solutions that you might have seen. And this guy, Mark, has helped me so much with all of my print. So like when you go to the track and you see all of my half walls and my canopies and my posters and all the print stuff, Mark does all of that for my team to give me the brand that I need. Well, that year he stepped up and bought me an R1 for no reason. Right? Just damn. Like, hey, I think you should run an R1 at some point. And my 600 season went so bad in 2015 that by the time we got to Indianapolis, I was like, let's try riding both classes because why not? Let's ride stock 1000 and let's ride super sport. What could go wrong? I crashed out of both races at Indy. I ditched the 600 for the last round at New Jersey again. Got on the podium in the first race I really finished on the R1 at New Jersey.
I feel like you should stop saying what could go wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, every year's got its own thing. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
2016, we'll kind of accelerate it. Like 2016, why not go straight to Superbike? Why mess around in Superstock 1000 when I could just go straight to Superbike? I want to be at that level. So why take, quote unquote, the easy podiums, if I can eventually build myself to where, I can be better, because at the end of each race, I don't get to stand on the podium. Even if I'm in between the first 3 Superstock guys and my bike is still really Superstock spec, I'm running Superbike, I go home wondering what I can do better instead of being happy with 2nd or 3rd place in Superstock.
Yeah. Right. Go home inspired.
Go home, with, the chip on the shoulder type of thing. And 2016 was, New Jersey qualified on the 2nd row in Superbike, was stoked with that. And, didn't have that big one thing, but went into that off season thinking, that was when I made that decision. Going into 2017 was when I was like, okay, what if I could really do this, even though I race my own team? What if I can fund this program where I'm the only rider under the tent and all the focus is on me? I don't have to rent bikes. I don't have, the family. I don't have the brothers or any of that distraction, because I have to. I mean, if I'm going to run my own team, I have to minimize that stuff somehow.
Right. Yeah.
So
zero in on the reason you're there, which is in the end, you and your results.
Yes. So went into 2017 swinging, top 5s almost every weekend, beating the whole Superstock field almost every weekend, which was like a win. I mean, with teams like Westby and M4 and TOBC and like all the, Lattice Cowie with Fong. I mean, top tier teams that were running Superstock 1000. And now all of a sudden I'm getting interviews like, where do you want to go with this? Like, what do you want to do in Superbike? Do you want to be a team owner forever? Do you want to get a ride? And it was like, this is the first time I'm actually being thought of as a decent rider. At least, now I'm actually I feel like I'm something, and, I've got this opportunity, and I get a call, and I get a call to go replace somebody at Donington in the European Stock 1000, not the BSB Stock 1000, but the European Stock 1000.
Euro Stock 1000, yeah.
Yeah.
Alongside World Superbike. It was the day after Nikki passed. It was randomly I get this call hey, replace this guy in Donington, and I'm like, holy shit! Somebody actually called and asked to have me come ride something across that Atlantic Ocean. This is the greatest thing ever. You know what I mean? This is the first time anything. Yeah, this is the first time anything like that's ever happened. So there was not even a question. I was here at New Jersey when the call came, teaching a school. And I skipped out on the 2nd day of the school. Hannah drove down 6 hours from New York. We jumped on a plane. We went to Manchester. I was last in the first practice. I was second last in the second practice. And then I high-sided my brains out in the 3rd practice on a damp track, got knocked out, concussed, sent back home, had to miss Road America, had to rebuild myself, and had somebody ride my bike at Road America in place of me. All that momentum I built at the beginning of the season was gone. And that eventually led up to last year's New Jersey podium. That was the biggest, accomplishment of my career by far. So
I remember that whole thing. I remember rooting for you in that class and checking the times and stuff. And and then I also remember hearing about you coming back after high-siding your brains out.
Yeah, in hindsight, it was the stupidest thing ever.
That's a big ask.
Okay, here, go over there to a track you've never seen, on tires you've never ridden, on a ZX10 you've never ridden, on a Dutch team that, 2 of the guys spoke English, kind of.
Right.
And
in a part of the world that it rains in once in a while.
Yeah, right. And and adding in all of the craziness of like Nikki just passed away. Now I'm going to the first World Superbike event without Nikki. And
Right.
like there's all of this it was just like it was the craziest week ever.
Yeah, but you were never gonna say no. It just
no, I mean, and even even like all the circumstances with all that, like it was just like I for Road Racing World every month, and I remember writing the column about that weekend, and I'm like, at some point I'm going to look back at this and understand why this all happened, why I went over there, why it ended the way it did, and like why all these things like transpired. And now it kind of makes sense. I mean, I needed to be again knocked down so that I could figure out how to, you know what I mean? Like it's just like it's been this cycle of just getting kind of.
I don't know. I don't like this whole 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of thing that you've been doing for the entire.
Well, dude, look. I mean, so
story here.
I get this podium at New Jersey. The next weekend, I go to Barber. I'm 3rd overall on Friday. Saturday morning, a pin falls out of my caliper. My brake pads fall out of a caliper. I lose my brakes at 160 miles per hour. I go into the air fence and break my back. So one week,
so you've broken your back on multiple occasions.
Yes.
Ow.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That you were still racing motorcycles.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I mean, like it's every time something like is, like I joke with some of the guys I work with YCRS and like even with Hannah and people, like next time I get on that podium or the next time I win a race or if I win that first Superbike race, I'm going to take the longest cool down lap ever taken. Because I mean, once that shit's over, and I mean, once you're in Parc Fermé, once you're on the podium, like that's almost past like the celebration. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
right.
That part is the celebration is the personal satisfaction. Like the shield's still down, after you cross the finish line, and you have that personal relief. That's the true satisfaction, not in the fanfare and the group and the people, as much as that might sound weird, but
no, I respect that a hell of a lot more than when I hear the story that that you've told over this time period, and this is not the story of a guy who says I want to go race because I want adulation. This is not the story of someone that says, I want to race because I get this, and this out of it. This is, I want to do this thing because I'm proving to myself what you're saying. And this idea of the longest cooldown lap ever, or, admitting like being in tears behind the shield after you get that podium in New Jersey. Like, to me, that sparks like, certainly I don't want to say an everyman thing because you're far above that, but it's a connection that the average person watching can get and understand. The average person has not gone through this, I mean, everyone's life is difficult, but most people have gone through a series of setbacks. And then when they finally get that moment, it's almost like a personal release. Title of Rob's sex tape. But
God, it was going so well.
Right. But right, exactly. That's also title of Rob's sex tape. But I guess to me, I see this story, and that's like, if we're talking about the movie, right? The movie doesn't end on the podium on first place with the wreath being interviewed by your freaking wife, and you know what I mean, and all that. It's the moment, like I see like the camera zoom in on the shield, you know what I mean, just at the beginning of this episode. That to me connects it far more because I see like it's a personal victory far more than a, hey, look at me, I do this. It's no, I'm looking at myself, I'm proving that, that I had what I always knew that I had from the get-go.
Kyle, do you think you want the longest cooldown lap ever, also partly because you're worried about getting knocked back a step after that?
Well, I mean, literally because you don't know if you're ever going to get back there again. Nobody does. You know what I mean? Like, I still don't know if I'll ever get back there again, but I'm sure as hell gonna try as hard as I possibly can. And this weekend, going back into Jersey, it's that whole like, I mean, it's that energy is just kind of like coming back. So, you know, I don't really care if I'm like a one track wonder or whatever. Like, I care that I figured out again how to like say, well, again, like it doesn't matter if that happens. I'll figure it out. That's
Say that one more time there.
Unfortunately, the worst technical complaint issue ever, right at the crux of your thesis.
No, like it's more like, it again, being able to say like, it doesn't matter that happened. I figured it out again. You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
I don't think
that's what's important to me.
When you actually win, like no one gives a shit if you're a fucking one track wonder. You still won the damn race.
Yeah, no, it's just like, I would have loved to get back there before Jersey came around again. That was one of my goals, is to do it somewhere else. I mean, there's, I've already done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing it again is going to be even harder, but I have done that. So like, to be able to go and do it somewhere else would have been satisfying, and it will be when it happens. But
yeah, so that was kind of the last point that we wanted to really end on here for this episode is what's next for you. I mean, you kind of already brought it up a little bit, even in aside from obviously making it back onto the podium and being more consistent there and having better results. Like, I think everyone on the grid wants to strive to have better results, otherwise they wouldn't race motorcycles.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so much else going on in your life. Like, how are you going to change those other things? What are you going to change about racing to improve, and how are you going to keep going in this sport?
I mean, just like always, the goal is just to eliminate variables as they come up, and literally just, squeaky wheel gets the grease, and just take down everything that seems like the biggest problem at the time. And eventually, hopefully you run out of variables, and the base map, if you will, doesn't get changed too many times on you, like a tire change or whatever. But, just like, we talked about at the beginning of this episode, last year going into New Jersey, I found out that I didn't get that Yamaha ride. Right? I didn't get that replacement ride. The other day, I got an email finding out that I didn't get a Yosh ride. Right? So, like, seriously, I am fine with it. It just means to me, that means personally that I still got more to do, as KWR, as the team owner, rider, as whatever. That's how I think of it. So,
I mean, you put a lot of effort into KWR, and it's staying alive for next season.
Yeah, it will. I mean, it doesn't matter. If I'm buried or not, like, it's gonna go on as long as I decide it's gonna go on.
Yeah, to me it seems like too many this kind of stars aligning, so to speak. I mean, like the story, not to go weird full artist Kevin, but like the Iliad is the story of Odysseus finally getting home after victory, and then step back, and then victory and step back. He's blown across the Aegean Sea, all of that stuff, and eventually he gets home. He vanquishes the suitors and takes his rightful place. That's like literally like the story that I'm seeing here right now. Is that eventually things you get knocked down, you get back up, and now that can't knock you down again. And then you get knocked down, you get back up. Now that can't knock you down again. And slowly but surely, you're building this foundation that's just unshakable, immovable, undeterrable, and I mean, if I was going to like make a title of this episode right off the bat, undeterrable, like, you are not someone who will look at a problem and think, that's where it all went wrong. You think tomorrow is where it all goes right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. I mean, I think if we put this episode out as quick as we can, there are legions of people that are, I know you don't, the personal pride of the win or a podium or whatever, but there will be I don't know how many more, because it's not like we're the biggest league in the world, but a lot more people emotionally invested in the story of Kyle Wyman, which is all we really want out of racing, is stories connected to action and excitement. For me, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I just look at it as that's just one, like you said, it's just one more thing that's behind me, and I like to think that, you know, there's people who were held down more than I am that did bigger things than I have done. So why can't I find a way to make this work? You know, that's how I like to look at it.
Hell of a way to look at life. I mean,
Well, dude, I mean,
total nothing but respect for statements like that. Yeah, there's people who've had things harder, done well. So why can't I? And I think someone having that level of perspective in your position is huge, because it'd be real easy to get caught up in I travel the country and race motorcycles inside this insular little paddock. You know what I mean? And you could lack perspective massively. There's probably a few people on the grid who do.
Yeah, I mean, like I joke with people. Sorry, like we joke about this all the time. It's like when times are tough and like I haven't found the sponsorship, and I'm like, oh, what am I gonna do? You know, there's always a point every season, whether it's the beginning, middle, towards the end, where I'm like, how is this gonna make sense? And we always make the joke about the GoFundMe, right? The GoFundMe for racing, and it's like, here, I'm gonna post a GoFundMe. It says, here, help me live out my dream of being a motorcycle racer, so I can keep living my life with my beautiful wife, who is Miss New York, and race motorcycles for a living. And still, poor little me, you need to donate to my GoFundMe, because right. I'm, you know, like, dude, I will go through what people will consider financial catastrophe.
You mean racer credit cards? Like, is what you're saying?
Like absolute like financial Armageddon. Okay, like to live this lifestyle, and I just look at it as the price of doing business. Because like I would not, like I can't see myself doing anything else.
Can you talk to Luca? Because I feel like she needs a little bit of explanation from an outside party.
Very matter.
About why I do this.
See, this is like, Rob, you and I talked about this before. You know, we didn't even talk about it. Like 2017, I moved out of my house before the season. I lived in this trailer for the season with my, at the time, girlfriend, and didn't have that grounding because we needed to save the money to go racing, and she still married me.
Right.
Like,
yeah. No, that's fucking amazing.
Yes, please donate to my GoFundMe, because I am so like, you know what I mean? Like,
you know, you saying that just means that people are going to donate more to your GoFundMe if you had one.
Dude, that's not like.
It's not. No, I know you're not doing it intentionally. Yeah. I'm just letting you know that like people respond, like Kevin said, to the grounded person, right? You are more deserving of the help because you will appreciate it more like that than the, you know. I don't need to make the full comparison.
I mean, whatever. It's just, but you know,
yeah,
that's what I mean. It's like, okay, poor me, but like really poor me. I mean, you know, like we're going to
support you.
Whatever.
We're going to support you every way we can. It just won't be through a GoFundMe. So
please don't.
Right.
Please don't.
I mean, BrotoGP, we've like people have asked us about Patreon and doing stuff like that, and we even have a hard time kind of just accepting something of that sort, even though we are like, you know, we're a part of a product that people like to watch with motorcycle racing, with entertainment here, and we do give back, but at the same time, you know, we want to feel like we put in the effort and did it the way we want to.
Instead of, you know, saying, oh, well, I deserve to be, because we're of the time we put in or whatever else, you know, I deserve to be compensated. You know, that mindset is just, that just doesn't work, especially in racing. Just try to create value of what out of what you're good at, and try to create that, and then people will want to be associated. with what you're doing.
And be genuine doing it. It's very easy, especially this day and age, to sort of plastic, fake it till you make it. I mean, Instagrams, 9 times out of 10 are like, there was some article I read the other day that they're actually like every Instagram influencers, they all actually have the same page, they use the same photo tropes, they use the same motifs. It's all fake, right? But what people respond to is obviously the story, but the genuineness of it. If they can respond to connection, not farce. And for me, the idea like, oh, hey, look, like it's even like a joke, like, oh, support me and like my super pretty, talented, successful wife, ha 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 ha. But like, oh, like, wow, he's super cool about it. You know what I mean? Like, but it, no, it's a compliment really, because in this day and age, when you look at how people present themselves, they present themselves through a filter, quite literally, in fact, that is designed to, I mean, it's the day and age of Snapchat. It's smooth out the wrinkles. But an unwrinkled life is terribly uninteresting. I mentioned this, that may you live in interesting
perfection
times.
is boring.
Perfection is boring. Perfection is boring. No flaws is boring. You know what I mean?
Again, Kyle wants that perfect race.
Yeah, and Mark Marquez, right? Yeah, but it's not a perfect race. It's the culmination of an imperfect, winding path. It's not being handed every. Again, Mark Marquez. Qatar 2013. Well, when everything's handed to you perfectly, it's not the same. It doesn't carry the same level of weight, and I don't have the same level of invested interest in it. I mean, not to bring up my own thing, but I have a friend who is successful at the highest levels of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, adult world championships, unreal talent, a prodigy on the level that's unbelievable. And it was, how do you handle those kind of losses and setbacks? And the eventual point was, you compete enough that you normalize the tribulations and the trials to the point where you do it because of the process. The process itself is and so what happens is you normalize the trials and tribulations, that they no longer hold you back and they only build you up. And that's how someone like him was able to get there. And I see the kind of same things with you, is that you talk about these things that have happened to you, including catastrophic things. You forget credit cards, man. That's just money. You're talking about a broken back. You're talking about a broken neck. And you talk about it so nonchalantly, which in this day and age, if you knew someone that broke their neck, you never fucking stop hearing about it on their Facebook posts. You know what I mean? And you never stop hearing about it as an excuse for everything they couldn't do. And but I hear it through the lens of Kyle as, let me tell you this cool story about how I broke my back and then won an XR7 fucking XR1200 race later that year, or what, within the same calendar month. The storyline is far more interesting with imperfections.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also the motorcycle lifestyle. We seem to normalize these things that a large portion of the population is going to be aghast at, right? They, like, you crashed your motorcycle, you broke a collarbone, like, how could you race ever again? I'm like, well, I got it plated. It's fine. Yeah. That's just the mentality that you have to even think of keeping going in a sport like this, because there are going to be those setbacks. Like, my setbacks are not nearly as tough as yours, Kyle. Like, and I haven't been able to push as far. I mean, when you were racing DMG Supersport, like, that was when I wrote that on my like life's goal list of would like to qualify for a DMG Supersport race. And it, it took me until 2015 to accomplish it. And you were already there. So you just, you push hard, you do it, and you keep going. Like, I mean, one thing that I like to just keep in my head is tomorrow can always be better. Like, that's kind of just how I live my life. And the same thing with my lap times. The next lap can go faster. But I think we got to let you get to bed. You got to get on track tomorrow morning, right?
Yep.
He's already fallen asleep on us.
I did 4 days of coaching going into the Pittsburgh weekend, and I got arm pump on Friday morning practice for the first time in like 2 years. And I was like, uh-oh. This is going to be a long.
You still have your Venom, like Spider-Man Venom like things on. Oh no.
No,
you need a better camera for that one.
I bought skin color KT tape for that because I was tired of people asking me about it.
Right, and then I go post that meme I made about it.
So you're not coaching all the way up till the race weekend then, right? You're gonna take like Wednesday, Thursday off.
No, I'm coaching tomorrow and Wednesday, but I've made a deal with the guys at school, especially after just how Pittsburgh went for me physically, just being exerted. You know, I'm gonna cruise for the next 2 days and try to be a little more.
Oh,
yeah.
We lost the very end of that there, but you're back.
I'm gonna try to be more rested.
Yeah, the track internet connection has actually worked out well for you, and in the RV.
Kombucha.
Yep. All right, let's round this one out. Any closing thoughts there, Kevin?
I mean, for me, my closing thoughts is I'm just I have my eyes glued to the Moto America this weekend. You know, I always rooted for Kyle from the get-go, not just, you know, before I knew all of this stuff, you know, when we were still just sending stupid messages on Instagram because, you know, funny memes that got posted or whatever. But to me, there's a level of emotional investment I'm far more interested in now than I was before, and I already was. So I think anyone listening to this is gonna be along those same lines.
That's right. So everyone that's watching, thanks for checking us out. This is obviously on our YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe to videos. Listen on iTunes and Google Play as well, and actually on Spotify. I forgot to mention that last time. Thanks for tuning in. Root for Kyle in the Moto America Superbike races, and we're looking for good results out of you in New Jersey. Thanks for listening, everyone. Peace.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Later.